Welcome, fellow Stardust. Are you ready for a scare? I see you've come back for more. If you're new here, buckle up, and thank you all for joining me today. My name is DeRay, aka Rainbow Fright, lover of all things dark, creepy, and weird. And today, I'll be discussing Child's Play, both the original from 1988 as well as the remake from 2019. And this month, I'll be joined by another very special returning guest. She is a fellow cosplayer as well as a fellow lover of the weird. Please join me in welcoming back Lady Shasha of What Did I Just Watch?
I dare do it, Dimbella! Give me the power, I beg of you! Sorry, I had to
Yes. I love that, and I did not expect it. That was amazing. Welcome. I so appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I was just thinking to myself, like, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but that I can remember. The things that my mind commits to memories. Does it make sense?
Yeah, so when you watch it over and over, man, it just sticks. Yes. Well, you and I have done countless live streams together on each other's channels and on friends' channels. So I am super excited today to finally do something pre-recorded with you today.
Yes.
Before we get into our Chucky chat here, let's go ahead and get into a brief synopsis and a little bit of background for those of you who may need it. In the heart of Chicago, young Andy Barclay receives a good guy doll named Chucky for his birthday, not knowing it's possessed by the soul of a serial killer, the Lakeshore Strangler, using voodoo magic. As sinister events unfold, it becomes clear that Chucky, with his deadly intentions, is no ordinary toy. Andy and his mom must uncover the truth and stop Chucky before he can transfer his soul into Andy and escape his plastic prison. The original script was written by Don Mancini, who had come up with the concept while studying at UCLA in 1985. In 1986, while at Columbia, he wrote the first draft inspired by consumerism and the effect of marketing on children, with influences from Poltergeist, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Cabbage Patch Kids, Trilogy of Terror, and Twilight Zone episode Living Doll. The script caught the eye of producer David Kirshner, who took Don's second draft and sketches of the killer doll to major studios. Because Kirshner had previous success with An American Tale and had ties with Steven Spielberg, he was getting the attention and interest that Don wasn't able to get. Eventually, United Artists won the bidding war and the film went into production with Tom Holland directing and writing credit going to Don Mancini, Tom Holland, and John Lafayette. The film was released on November 9, 1988, and earned $44 million at the box office against a $9 million budget. The film stars Catherine Hicks, Chris Sarandon, Alex Vincent, and the legendary Brad Dourif as the voice of Chucky. Now, there is a lot more to say about the background of this movie, but first, Lady Shasha, let the audience know just how much you love this movie and why.
I love this movie because I love the character of Chucky and even Charles Lee Ray, the underlying character. I love creepy dolls in general. I can see some of the influences from the Trilogy of Terror, which I do have a African Zuni warrior doll. Oops, on this. You can barely see them back there, nice. But I have them. Yeah. So and just the age that I was when this movie came out, Chucky actually, the TV spots, I remember the TV spots for the movie scaring me and seeing the scene with the doll walking down the hallway. And that just, I don't know, it was just a perfect age to see this movie. And just, I love everything about it. I love that animatronics were used. I love that there was a double, which I'll talk about him later because I believe he deserves a spotlight. It's such a classic. Even rewatching as an adult, there's things that I picked up on that I didn't catch as a child. One of the things being the first half of the movie, you don't actually see Chucky do anything. So it leads you to believe that possibly Andy is making this up in his head. And that gives another layer to it. Even the kill with the auntie, you don't see Chucky do it. You just see the point of view of someone small doing something. So you don't know whether it's Andy doing it or Chucky until the reveal happens, which is one of the best reveals in horror movie history. I love it. I love
yes, you're talking about the batteries not included.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, which, by the way, that was the original title of Child's Play. It was called Batteries Not Included, but Steven Spielberg was making a movie at the same time called Batteries Not Included, and of course, he had more pull in the industry, so they had changed the title to Blood Buddy before they settled on Child's Play.
I wasn't actually too familiar with the Buddy doll prior to Chucky, but I obviously was familiar with Cabbage Patch Kids, and he definitely reminded me of the Cabbage Patch dolls
Mm-hmm.
for sure. And, you know, like I was saying before, I was kind of drawn to just creepy looking dolls as a kid anyway. So watching him just run around and doing these nefarious things was almost like a dream come true. And you make a good point, you know, as an adult, you know, when you're watching this, you don't really see too much going on until the second half of the film when we get the big reveal. And finally, an adult notices that the batteries aren't even in the doll. And then we get, you know, a fun chain of events where she's finally on Andy's side. But when you're watching this as a kid, you know, you still don't see Chucky doing anything. But as a kid, you just kind of have this imagination where, like, of course Chucky's real and he's talking. And so you're kind of seeing the, you know, movie in the perspective of Andy, and you
Mm-hmm.
know the doll is doing this. Of course it's not Andy. Like, I can just tell you that he's telling the truth. I can feel it, you know? So it's that it was fun from that perspective as a kid. And then as an adult, you know, you get more of the dark comedy, and the kills are just a lot of fun to watch because a lot of these people just got it coming to them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just a whole lot of fun.
I believe this is right after Chris Sarandon starred in Fright Night. So he went right from like Fright Night to Child's Play, which was a pretty good move for him.
Yes, yes. And I actually still need to watch Fright Night, but everybody in the horror community raves about it. But Tom Holland also directed Fright Night as well as Thinner. And Thinner is another one of my absolute favorite movies
Yes.
ever. He knows how to just create a really creepy and spooky atmosphere. He, I feel like, understands horror pretty well, even if he's trying to be a little funny and light about it at the same time.
Another thing I want to highlight about the original Child's Play are the special effects. They really leaned into using animatronics and practical effects, and they also had a stunt performer named Ed Gale, which I wish more people knew about him. He did a lot of the Chucky's walking scenes, but he also did a full body burn coming out of the fireplace as Chucky. And some other things that Ed Gale did was he doubled as Warwick Davis in Leprechaun 3. And he did the full body burn again, but this time suspended on wires. He also, this is the funniest thing, he doubled as Chucky in Child's Play, but he also doubled in Dolly Dearest. So that was, I was really surprised to find that out, and to find out that he also doubled on Howard the Duck. So he has like a really extensive resume for being a stunt performer with dwarfism. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, I do love how they did utilize both practical effects as well as using a stand in. And then when he was in the shot, everything in that shot was like 30% bigger. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to match Chucky's size when he's a doll, all the furniture was just a little bit bigger. And it's crazy just how many different Chucky puppets there were. It wasn't just one. They had one, you know, for different scenarios, doing different motions and movements. And the number of puppeteers being used was pretty crazy just for one doll. One person would just be doing the eyes, the other person would just be doing the upper lip. That was cool to learn.
The lore that they created with the I guess I'm going to refer to it as voodoo, even though it's not like proper voodoo. It's movie voodoo, but I'm still okay with it. I think it's fun. Like if we can have all these possession and exorcism movies that are based around Catholicism, I think, you know, voodoo can have a sense of humor about itself too. So I
sure.
really enjoyed that part of it. The scene where he goes to see his mentor and basically takes the voodoo doll and breaks his arms and stuff. Oh,
Oh my
that
gosh.
was great.
Brutal.
Now, how do I get out of this body?
No, I won't tell you.
Yeah?
And just to keep on going on with the special effects, a fun fact I found out was that Chucky's eyes were reused by special effects technician Kevin Yeager for the building of the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt.
Oh, they do look the same.
Yeah, because I'm like, maybe that's why I had such a familiarity with the Crypt Keeper.
The last thing that I want to say about the effects is the actor, how Chucky looked after the scene with the fireplace. The melt, they had like several stages of melting that I really enjoyed.
Yeah. He gets nice and gooey, burnt to a black crisp.
Yes, I was going to say that crispy would be his last form. His final form is crispy.
Extra crispy. I love how his death is foreshadowed in the reveal when we find out that he doesn't have the batteries in there. It's when Catherine Hicks' character, Karen, is yelling at the doll, talk to me, or I'll throw you in the fire. But he comes to life and defends himself. But at the very end, she winds up doing it, and he gets that fire. He gets that extra crispiness.
That was one of my favorite scenes when he starts cursing at her. That and the elevator scene. When the old couple's like, what an ugly doll.
Ugly doll.
Fuck you.
The original took about 3 months to shoot, and it was shot in 1988 and was released that same year, which is a pretty quick turnaround. The producer, Krishner, really was interested in making a killer doll movie after reading the Dollhouse Murders, and he also just wanted to branch out of doing children's entertainment after doing An American Tale. What a great way to get out of that world than to get right into some gory horror stuff. Love it.
And still inadvertently become children's entertainment. so many kids watch Child's Play.
Yeah, true. Yes, exactly.
Sure I will. Heidi ho, ha ha ha. I saw this one.
So it's really cool to hear that Don Mancini's script was just so different than what was given to us in 1988. We talked a little bit about the Chucky series on Sci-Fi, and basically his original script was more like that series is. Even though the series does follow this same timeline, he initially wanted the doll to act as Andy's id and have them, exchange blood and, have him basically do all these things for Andy. But Krishner, the guy who was super interested in getting this produced, knew that might not, or felt that it might not be as big of a seller. So they changed that up a bit. And he didn't think, people would sympathize with the protagonist as much with his original idea. By the recommendation of Steven Spielberg is when they brought in Tom Holland to do the rewrites. And he actually tried to, and this is after Don did a rewrite and we had John Lafia doing a draft of the script. And so then after the fact, Tom Holland fought to get the full writing credit for the script, but he wasn't granted that. The union said that they would all have to share the writing credit, which, I can understand where Tom Holland's coming from, but it's like, dude, just leave it. You might have made some big changes, but this idea wouldn't have been anything without Don. So to try to kind of push Don Mancini out completely, I thought was just a bit unfair.
Mm-hmm. I am glad that he's gotten this opportunity to tell the story the way he wants to tell it with the Chucky series. And I think it's also great for queer kids that are growing up to have a show that features them heavily and not just as a side character that's just like in the background, but as main characters.
Definitely happy that he's finally getting the story that he wanted in the beginning told, while still being able to keep the world intact and keep the continuity going. It's awesome. All right, well, let's now go ahead and dive into the remake from 2019. It has the same title, Child's Play, and here is another short synopsis real quick with a little bit of background. This time around, Chucky isn't powered by voodoo, but by rogue AI. When a technologically advanced buddy doll named Chucky is gifted to young Andy by his mother, it seems like the perfect companion. But soon, a defect in Chucky's programming, tampered with by a disgruntled factory worker, unleashes a sinister and violent personality. As Chucky's obsession with protecting Andy turns deadly, they must unravel the mystery of this high-tech terror before it's too late. The idea for a remake first came up in the early 2010s, with Brad Dourif set to be the voice of Chucky once again. However, the film never went into pre-production and wasn't spoken about again until 2018. But by this time, MGM decided to go a completely new direction with an entirely new creative team, hiring virtually unknown Lars Klevberg to direct and Tyler Burton Smith as the screenwriter. Sadly, Don Mancini and David Kirshner had no involvement with the remake, which completely ignores the following 6 films after the original. Although the puppet designers and creators also utilized practical effects for the doll, there was also use of CGI in the face. The movie was released on June 21st, 2019 in the US and earned $45 million at the box office against a $10 million budget. The movie stars Aubrey Plaza, Gabriel Bateman, Brian Tyree Henry, and Mark Hamill as the voice of Chucky. All right, Lady Shasha, so how did the remake make you feel after your very first watch, and how have your feelings changed since then, if at all?
I actually was pleasantly surprised because I thought it was going to suck balls. And I was like, I am not with this. I don't even like how that child's mouth moves. I am not here for this. But actually seeing the movie, I kind of like what they did with it. They really did. For me, I feel like they did a good job updating the story for a newer generation, because I don't think like a Generation Alpha or a younger Gen Z, I don't think they would really identify with the original Child's Play movie because they didn't grow up with those type of dolls. So this would be more along their it would be more what they're used to. An AI doll is more current and of the time, I think. So I wasn't mad at that update. I also wasn't mad at the update of how the doll came to be the way it was, with the disgruntled worker disabling what's essentially like a governor on or a modifier that keeps the doll from learning the wrong things, because the whole thing about AI is it learns from you. So the doll inadvertently started learning negative things just based on what it was exposed to. And I thought that's a pretty interesting concept.
Yes, you do bring up a good point, because AI does learn from humans, and this new Chucky is becoming that way because it's observing what's going on around him. So that's a fun concept, because personally I am getting more into AI. I can understand how some people are afraid of it and don't like what they're seeing about it, but to be honest, AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's been around since the 50s, and it's going to be more prevalent in so many different industries and just in every facet of life. So just accept it. And so when I see movies about it, it's cool to see because it's educating people on a certain level a lot of times. And so, that's fun. And you do bring up another good point where this new Child's Play from 2019 is more for this generation, and this generation of kids who are all just glued to any kind of screen, whatever screen they can get their hands on. And so for me, of course, in researching for this discussion and watching this for the first time, because I hadn't seen this remake until about a week ago, because I just at first didn't like the way this doll looked. It just is ugly, and I hate the way that it looks. But I did want to like it, and as a Child's Play fan, right away, no, I don't like it because it takes me out of that world completely, and it's completely just different. I understand that it's more of a reboot than it is a remake, but I'm going to this movie and to this title, Child's Play, because of nostalgia. Yes, as a millennial. And also, we talked about the series before that Don Mancini is currently doing on Sci-Fi, which I'm loving. It's also about a 13-year-old boy, and he's got his doll who is basically killing the folks around him that are harming him. And while I don't dislike that story, I think because it just is its own thing and in this own world, I can't connect with it and be as satisfied with this remake as I am with the series. But yeah, those were my initial thoughts.
What is wrong with you? I thought it would make you happy.
Another issue I had is the choosing of the name Chucky. There was just no reason behind it. And I think that's another reason why the disgruntled employee rubs me the wrong way. It's because his origin story just seems so hollow. Although what happened to that worker is terrible and just so sad, but it didn't have anything to do with Chucky. And when he comes up with his name, it's like, oh, okay, I'm Chucky, instead of the whole story of Charles Lee Ray. That's why he's called that. So, and it's like, and doesn't Don have the rights to that name? And yes, I get that they could name whatever characters, whatever, but if you're gonna go so far in life, just keep going. And that was my other point too that I forgot to make too, is like this would, I think, would be more appreciated by myself and other fans if it was just not called Child's Play, if it was just called anything else. And it's because, like, well, look at here, you know, you did this remake of this original, and now you can't even do a sequel because we've got the show going on. So you just kind of put yourself in a dead corner.
They should have called it Buddy. The same way that it's spelled on the commercials that were in there, the Buddi, and just called it Buddy.
Yeah. And, you know, because all I could think about was Megan, of course. And I'm sure Megan took some influence from the new Child's Play and other doll movies. But I would definitely choose Megan over Child's Play, the remake.
I'm so glad I finally found you.
So just to touch a little bit more on what I did, like the kills, and there were 2 kills that I really enjoyed. One of them was when Shane, Karen's boyfriend, is at his home taking down the Christmas lights, and he falls off the ladder, breaks his legs. Awesome. He later then gets scalped with the lawnmower. But what really bugs me is the fact that he's taking down these Christmas lights at night. And I'm just like, why? The original film is set during Christmas, but this one isn't, and it's just so distracting. But I read on IMDb that apparently the director, Lars, wanted the film to be set during Christmas, and it wasn't, but he just wanted to keep this scene up in particular because he thought it was just so hilarious. And I'm just like, okay, I guess it was necessary to have him taking down, like he could have been doing anything else and still had the kill be just as cool. So
Why? You could have him just cleaning a gutter or maybe have a cat stuck on the roof and he had to go up there and try to get the cat. Like there's so many scenarios of why he'd have to be up high.
Cat would have been way more funny. Yes. Yes.
Did you happen to notice what movie that the kids were watching on the TV set?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2?
Yes, I knew you would catch it.
Yes.
DJ, my fave. That dirty thing.
And then I think he also had Killer Clowns from Outer Space on his wall. So they were given a lot of appreciation to 80s horror. I do give them props for also mostly using animatronics and also having like 9 or plus different Chucky puppets that they were using. The effects were done by Master Effects, who I love. They do great work. But I think, you know, they don't really talk much about it, but I could swear I see CGI in the mouth. Although I know it does move and it does some things, I just feel like there is some digital stuff going on in the mouth, which is very disappointing. And there's also CGI in the eyes. And I did find and confirm that there is CGI and digital stuff going on with the eyes. But it's like to go that far, and I get that we're doing the whole AI thing, but the doll just should have been 100% practical.
They did that with the Thing also when they did the reboot to the Thing, where Amalgamated. I'm trying to remember the name of their company. It was called Amalgamated something that did all the practical effects. And then the producers decided that they didn't like practical effects and they wanted CGI. So then they superimposed CGI over the practical effects and like really screwed the people over. I was like so disappointed in that.
And speaking of the remake kind of, paying respects to 80s film, E.T. is definitely referenced a bunch in this remake. We have Andy with his little hoodie on all the time, and we've got Chucky with his little light finger that does magical stuff. It's glowing, yes. And then Chucky is learning how to do things from watching TV, which E.T. does as well.
I feel like a couple of characters were like underused. Like Aubrey Plaza as the mother is like she's barely there, and I'm like, why did they do that? The Karen was a pretty big part of Child's Play, and they just almost kind of wrote her character to the side, like she exists, but she's not really there.
Right. She didn't really command a lot of respect. She was sleeping with a married man, and she didn't seem like she had much self-respect. And, I liked her banter with her son at some points, but it just wasn't very motherly. They more had like a sister-brother type of relationship.
And it's a shame because I really like Aubrey Plaza. She
love
deserves
her.
better. And then they completely seemed like they wrote out of the romance angle with because I feel like Brian Tyree Henry's character is supposed to be the new Chris Sarandon character. There was like a tension between Karen and Chris Sarandon's character and a little bit of romance there. They didn't do that with this. And I'm just going to say it. I feel like they chickened out just because of the interracial aspect. And I'm like, that's BS. It's 2019. Get the fuck over it. Stop doing that shit.
Yeah, maybe. I just feel like they wanted to have him be more of the Black comedic relief instead, which to me just never worked. All of his lines just fell flat. Because one of them, he says, "Oh, little millennials." I'm like, they're not millennials at all. No. They're way young. And then he's walking to a crime scene or walking through a crime scene. He's like, "Oh, I just bought these shoes." I'm like, then why are you wearing them on the day that you're supposed to work? Like his little comments just weren't funny to me at all. And it was just poor writing and directing. I feel like that made that happen. And so, yeah, both Aubrey and Tyree Henry just were placed in weird roles that didn't really belong to them.
A waste of a great actor. Brian Tyree Henry is I believe he came from the Yale acting school. Like, dude is an actor, and you just wasted him. Like, you could have got Kevin Hart to do that crap.
Exactly. And watch him on Atlanta.
Yes.
Love him.
No more European strip clubs, all right, man? I heard that. It's £100 to get in, and we don't have any titties.
When he started singing to the boy at night, I'm sure that was meant to be creepy, but I laughed my ass. I don't know why that was so funny.
I mean, none of the movie for me was creepy or scary. And that's the big difference, too, for me in the original. Because while we do get this dark comedy, this dark humor and silliness, there's still this sinister vibe to it. And with this new movie, there's just nothing that freaks me out or creeps me out. Like, I don't even think the jump scares got me if there were any even in there. I just didn't feel tension, and it just felt flat for me.
And there's so many ways they could have made it creepier, especially if they leaned into the AI aspect of it. Like they did it a little bit with some of the home elements, but they could have went so much further if they had him really control smart home devices, and maybe they could even set up for a sequel if he had uploaded his consciousness into like the whole smart home network, and then had like different kids waking up in their home to Buddy singing that creepy song to him to let you know that, he has spread his consciousness through all the Buddy devices and apps. Like, you could have really leaned into the creepiness of what AI could be like.
Yep. And they did, have intent of making a sequel, but because the series came out, it was just like, well, I guess that's done, know. Yeah, definitely a missed opportunity just to create a Buddy franchise. Just do that. And we could have Chucky and Buddy going at it and have that whole world. That would have been cool to see if they wanted to go that direction. Just a lot of missed opportunity there, thinking that they were going to have something awesome by having the name Child's Play. I mean, like you said, it's going to appeal to some younger folks maybe, but it's just not scary, and it doesn't have the soul of the original, unfortunately. And speaking of just things falling flat and feeling a bit deflated, one of the best lines in the original is, "This is the end, friend." And then in the remake, it's said by the detective, and he doesn't even add friend at the end. He's the one that says, "This is the end." And it's just annoying because, first of all, he shouldn't have come back to life. I don't really care for false deaths. Only sometimes Scream does it a bunch, and they got away with a lot these last couple of movies, but it didn't work for me here. A lot of what happened to poor Tyree Henry didn't work here, and him saying the line and coming back from the dead just ruined it for sure for me at the very end there.
And it's more powerful to have the child be the victor. Because in the original, the child had to actually fight and be the victor. He wasn't like the adults tried to rescue him, but he kind of had to save himself. And I thought that was kind of powerful.
Yes, exactly. So pretty sure I know your answer as well. If you had to pick, which would you choose, the original or the remake?
Oh, the original every time. It just holds up to rewatching so much. Like, it never gets old for me.
Yep. I love it every time. I just grow more fond of it every time I watch it. I need to revisit the whole franchise again. I haven't revisited the last 3 movies as much, so it'd be cool to spend like 2 or 3 days going through all of them again.
There is one thing I do want to ask the audience that is watching this video. What generation do you call yourself a part of, and which Child's Play do you like the best, and why? Don't argue. This is just, I just wonder, because we are a millennial and a Gen X talking about Child's Play. I really want to know what Gen Z thinks of both movies and how you related to them. I'm just really, really interested. But I also want to know what other millennials and other Gen Xers think too.
And also let us know what you're doing over there on What Did I Just Watch? Anything else that you might be doing outside of YouTube.
Coming up on Mondays, as always, I am on Hood Podcast, where we talk about all things Black geek culture. This past Monday, we spent an hour just reacting to social media's reaction to Kendrick Lamar versus Drake, which is amazing. Most likely next Monday we will still be reacting, because I'm sure more tracks will drop in between. So that's what I'm doing on Hood Podcast. Also on my channel, I'm getting back into my reviews, and on my website, which is whatidijustwatch.com, I'm introducing a new interview series that features Black women and women of color who are in the horror sphere, whether they are YouTubers, writers, directors, just anything to do with horror, thriller, sci-fi, or dark fantasy. I'm going to be featuring them in an interview series. And I am working with one of the horror authors, an award-winning horror author, Crystal Connor, with the Cabin in the Woods Film Festival, which is a hybrid boutique film festival, which takes place in the Pacific Northwest of Seattle. It's got 3 sections. The first section is in a cabin, where VIP guests are able to stay in a cabin and view horror, sci-fi, thriller, and dark fantasy films, both short and full length. There's a second section where people can view these films in the movie theater for a 2-day festival. And then there's a third section, which is online. And it's completely interactive, where you will be able to, and not just be able to, but be encouraged to talk through the movie via text message and message board. We have a message board that plays during the movie where people can give their live reactions, which is great because that's what the directors love to see. They want to see how you're responding to their movies. There's also going to be giveaways and escape rooms and other games to play. Last year, Rainbow Fright was one of our lovely special presenters, and I believe she's returning this year to present for the Cabin. It's actually called Cabin on the Web, the web version. So for more information, definitely go to cabininthewoods.com. You could also follow Cabin in the Woods Film Festival on Instagram on TikTok, and on Twitter. What's left of Twitter is just cabin_fest. But again, the main information is going to be cabininthewoodsfilmfestival.com.
Very good, very good. Well, awesome. It was so good talking to you today, Lady Shasha, about Child's Play, both the original and the remake. I had such a good time, and
Same.
I can't wait for us to do this again. Yes. All right. Well, Stardust, until next time, peace.